Okay, so we are now going to give some abilities into our enemy. Abilities or some intelligence into our enemy. So, as you could observe, our enemies are just going to patrol. When our game starts, they are just going to move immediately and patrol on this given area. Okay, from this point up to this point. Okay, so what I want is that uh, I want to have an enemy that is going to stay at a certain point. For example, we're going to have an enemy here. Then, in a given point or in a given distance, when the player is going to be on, let us say, the attack range of the enemy. So that's the time that it's going to move and chase our player. Okay? So it is going to move only when the player is within range. Okay? So let us say within, let us say nearby. So when it is nearby, so therefore it is then going to attack our player. By the way, I'm just going to move first my the other obstacles here because I'm going to have the player or the intelligent, let us say, the intelligent enemy in this platform. Okay. By the way, our camera is on. Okay. So I'm going to have here an enemy. Okay, we have here our dragon. So I'm going to have my dragon into my sprites. Okay. Oops, I already had the dragon. Okay. Same dragon here actually. Okay. Then I'm going to have that dragon to stand here. Okay, so we're going to have the box collider 2D, and since it is going to move, so we're going to have our rigid body. Okay, so this is what will happen. Um, when the player, let us say, it is going to on the third block or in the second third block here. So once it is going to arrive or reach this distance here, this point here, that's the time that the dragon is going to move towards our player. Okay, take note. It is going to move towards the player or it is going to chase our player. And once it is going to catch up with our player, then game over. Okay? So first is we're going to create here a script. Okay, so I'm just going to call it enemy AI. So some sort of AI, some sort of intelligence for our enemy. Okay? So since it is going to move, okay? So I'm just going to copy this enemy controller. Then we're just going to modify then. Okay, so enemy AI. Okay, so first is we are, okay, so we have here our the rigid body because it is going to run, okay, and the speed. And for our direction, by the way, so we're not going to have, now, the direction will depend on the location of the player, okay? Because if ever the player is here, the direction is negative. If the player is on the right side, it is going to be positive. Okay, so I'm not going to have, I'm just going to have the direction. Okay, so since it is, I'm just going to initialize it as -1 since it is facing now to the left. Anyway, okay, equals -1. Okay. So since it is going to chase our player, so I'm going to initialize here our player. Okay, take note because as I've said, we are going to monitor the distance of the player to our enemy. Okay, so that is why I'm going to initialize here a player, and since I want to serialize the player because we are just going to assign it later on. Okay, then aside from that, we are going to initialize here also. I'm going to call it attack range. Okay, let us say 5. Okay, so if ever it could then reach, or the distance between the player and the enemy is 5 points, then we are going to make the enemy attack. Okay, so as is. Then in our update. So in our update is we are going to first, okay. Okay, so first is we are going to, uh, since we are going to monitor, okay, so therefore we are going to check the distance. Okay, so I'm going to have float distance to player. Okay, distance to player is the distance between the current transform and the other one and the player. Okay, so now it has here now uh, a recommendation. Okay, so we're going to use here a vector to that distance, then transform, meaning transform attached to this game object, meaning the current position of the enemy and the current position of the player that we have initialized here. Okay, so I'm going to show first debug.log, then distance to player. Okay, so I'm going to display the distance as I'm going to move my player. I'm going to display on the console the distance that we have calculated. Okay, save. Okay, wait. I think I have a problem. The dragon, then I'm going to connect my script. Okay. The variable player, okay, another one. So as you can see here into our dragon, so we have our enemy AI for the script, and the player that I have serialized in my code is we have here now. So I'm going to get the player and assign it to my transform player. Okay. Okay, so as you can see here, so the distance is we have 5 point something. As I'm going to go farther, the distance is, oops, collider. Okay, so we have there. Okay, so as I'm going to go farther, as you can see, the distance is also increasing here. Okay, so what I want is that when, okay, I think we have 5. Okay, so what I want is that if ever the distance between them is less than or equal to 5, for example, in this case, so the dragon should move and chase our player. Okay, so we have now our distance. So after we get the distance, so we are then going to validate. Okay, so if distance is less than or equal to our attack range. So less than or equal to attack range, then, okay, I'm just going to have debug.log and then to say, Okay, attack the player. Else stay. Okay, I'm going to remove save. Okay, so attack the player, then stay. Okay, so take note here. Okay, so if ever I am within range, so attack the player. So therefore, supposedly, the enemy is now chasing my player. Then as I'm going to move back, okay, so stay. So meaning it is now beyond the range of the attack range of our enemy. Okay, so how are we going to do the attack? Okay, so I'm just going to create here. Instead of move, I'm going to avoid, then attacked. Okay, so we are not going to have any more or this one here. Okay, because what I want is that it is going to chase our player. And by the way, I'm also going to remove all of these. Okay, so into our attack. Okay, so we have the command transform that. So we're going to change the position of, take note, transform with the letter T, meaning our enemy. That position is equal to vector 2 that move towards the current position, the transform attached to this game object, and it is going to move towards the position of the player. Actually, this is the syntax is here. The current position, then the target position with the distance. Okay. So we have here uh, the transform or the enemy, the current location, then the target position, and the distance. Okay. Or the speed actually. Okay. So if ever the distance is less than or equal to the attack range, then it is going to move towards our player. Okay, so save. Okay, oops. Oh no, it's very fast. Okay, so 200, so let us say 10. Okay, the speed is 10. Oops, still very fast. But as you can see, it is now chasing our player. Let us say 1. Okay, move. So it's now chasing our player. Then I run. Oops, wait. Um, okay, it's now chasing the player, then I run. Then once it is now out of range of the attack range, it's now beyond the attack range of the enemy, it now stops. Okay, so move again. Then as I'm going to move it at the back, as you can see, it is now also moving towards my player. Okay, so it is going to always, as long as it is on the range, as it is on the attack range of the enemy, so it is going to move towards our player. Okay, so again, we have an issue on the local scale on the X. Okay, it should face the player. Okay, so no matter where is the player, it could be either on the left or the right. So we have here now for our direction. Okay, so how are we going to know then that our player is on the left or on the right side of the enemy? Okay, so actually I think we are not going to have any more the direction because the direction is used, we have used the direction for the movement of the enemy. Our only problem here now is how are we going to make our enemy to face the player? Okay? So first we are going to determine where is our player. Could be either on the left or on the right side of the enemy. So if player dot transform dot position dot x, okay? So as you can see here, position dot x is less or is greater than. Okay, I'm going to have the left first. Okay, so if ever it is less than, oh, okay. So if ever it is less than, or the player is less than, meaning it is on the left. If the x, because the x here is less than the x here. Okay, so therefore, in this position now, meaning the player, the x of the player is less than the x of the enemy. But if ever the player is on the right side, so therefore the x of the player is greater than the x of the enemy. Okay? So therefore, if ever it is on, okay, less than, so meaning it is on the left side, the local scale is negative 1. Okay? Then, okay, so else, so therefore it is greater. Okay, so therefore it must be on the right. Oh, I think it is again the reverse because it is now facing to the right. To the left, I mean. Okay? Okay, so it is the reverse. So we're going to change uh, negative 1. Okay, so as you can see, it is now attacking or chasing our player. So once it is now on the right, so our dragon now also uh, okay, change its scale or position or the direction of its head. Okay, so you could adjust actually the speed now of the enemy so that it would catch up maybe with our player. Okay, then by the way, I'm going to tag it as enemy so that when the player is going to touch our dragon, okay, it is now game over. Okay, so with this we have now uh, implemented a bit of AI or some sort of intelligence into our enemy so that it is not just going to be passive, it is just going to stay at a certain point, but it is going to wait for the player. And once it is going to be on its attack range, it is going to chase on our player. Okay, so that's a very simple or a very basic intelligence or AI into our enemy.